Welcome to ChristiTutionalist Politics Podcast, aka CTP, in association with TheLibertyBeacon.com, and I am your host, Joseph M. Leonard, and that's Leonard. CTP is your no muss, no fuss, just me, you, and occasional guest type podcast. I really appreciate you tuning in. As Graham Norton would say, let's get on with the show.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Season 2, Episode 64. Find my place in my notes. And first, the title is Charity, Neighborliness Part 2. But before I get into that, I want to apologize to you for last week's episode. I had to listen back for whatever reason it was. I'm on an extra medication for a strained muscle and nerve, and it's got me a little foggy. So bear with me, please. But yeah, I listened back to last week's episode, and while the content was there that I wanted to be there, I felt that the presentation was very subpar, and I want to apologize to you for that, because you would think now, 64 episodes in, I'd be getting better at this, not worse, right? So I will strive and endeavor to do a lot better. But this episode 2, I don't script episodes, but yes, I'll be going from notes, and it'll be a fairly short episode 2 because it is a follow-up to last week's Neighborliness episode, and therefore I will be tacking on a second segment that will be going into upcoming guests. Since this is airing in September, some guests that were already on in August, and those from September through December. Not all of them, but those that are known that'll be coming. And I'm already feeling like I should apologize to you again for the presentation of this episode. I obviously don't have it all together today, but as I've said to you in the past, hey, this is me, that's you, live, well, not live, but raw, pretty much uncut most of the time. It is what it is. You get me as I am. I'm not a professional radio show host. I think that is, you all know that by the presentations, but I just kind of give it to you as is. So, at any rate, yes, let's get one of those in early in the episode, but let's get to it. Or, as I say in the opening, as Graham Norton would say, let's get on with the show, rather than me rambling on all this other stuff. But this episode is indeed a bit shorter because, as you know, or if this is your first episode, may not know, this show, ChristiTutionalist Politics Podcast, is in conjunction with The Liberty Beacon. Every Saturday, same day that this show drops, there is a corresponding, correlating, in conjunction with article, usually the exact same name as the CTP show, Charity, Neighborliness Part 2, there on The Liberty Beacon. I have to keep those down to a readable level, right? if I put a 5,000 word article up there, nobody's going to read it. So in order to make that readable, I broke the neighborliness down to last week, and now charity, the extension of that this week. And indeed, Tim Walz, no theft from your neighbor to give to another neighbor is not neighborliness. It is certainly not charity. Right to repeat, community is voluntary, charitable, lifting up, etc. That is biblical. Communism/socialism, which is forced, theft and redistribution, tearing down people to give to others, is not biblical. And that's the point of this episode, the extension, charity. Stealing from one to give to another is not biblical. Charity is. Charity, giving of yourself, your blood and treasure, your time, your energy, your effort, your own money or items around the house you don't use anymore, giving it to Salvation Army or whatever so that others can make use of them. Now, I know some people are not fond of Salvation Army because most of the time gifts that are given to them are then sold. But remember, folks, them selling things give them the funds when a disaster occurs that they have funds. So other charities, however, indeed take items and then give those items to others in need. Both forms of charity are equally important. There is a need and use for all of that. And the other part I've got written down here is right, you have to sow to reap. You can't just sit around and do nothing. Like Jesus did not say in render unto Caesar. He didn't say give everything, your Christian commanded duties to Caesar to do. Right? We are given free will, which means we are to then act on that. We are to want to be our brother's keeper, not be commanded at the barrel of a gunpoint to do so. We are to want to give of ourselves, our money, our time, our things, our resources, whereas that isn't a render unto Caesar thing. Give that, just let the government do it. No, if that's your thinking, I beg you, please get back into your Bible and check the whole context. As I say over and over in this show, the whole Bible in full context. And also, as part of this charity episode, I wanted to mention I'm older. I think you know I have health issues. If this is your first episode, you don't know that. I have health issues. I've been on disability. I don't have the money to give, but yet I still occasionally will donate here and there, 5, 10, 20 bucks, if and when I can. Whatever of your means you can do, you should do. Right? And I bring this up because I volunteer time at the Mount Carmel Church Festival. That's not the official church to which I belong, and it's also now known as Lady of the Spatula. No, of course not. Just joke. Lady of the Scapular, right? But it will always be Mount Carmel Church to me. They just had, as I record this, their church festival. If I could get the words out. Again, I'm a little foggy. I apologize. This muscle relaxer has got me a little slow in the membrane today still. But the Mount Carmel Church Festival is the last full weekend of every August. So I usually deal blackjack. And in fact, hold on just a second. There we go. For the people on the video behind the scenes, I'm wearing my I Never Forget 9/11 shirt because were at that time again. But what I planned on doing actually was wearing this shirt, the mock tuxedo t-shirt. I know you've all seen them before, right? It's got my name on there, Joe, because I used to deal blackjack in the Vegas tent, and Bob, who ran the Vegas tent, got us these shirts to, kind of as a joke, kind of as a tease, kind of just messing around a little, make us look a little more formal, and that we were kind of in a uniform that way, all to promote the Vegas tent. Whenever we walked around, it says Vegas on the back. They don't do a Vegas tent anymore. So I volunteered 4 hours at the beer tent. And quickly, the first beer I poured, it was clear I can't pour the beer. So I was quickly moved to the front to take the tickets. You had to buy tickets to get the beer. Take the tickets and hand the beer over, because if the first beer I poured was 3/4 of the glass was foam, and that certainly wasn't going to work. But 4 hours really wore me out, because I'm out of practice doing things and getting older, getting slower, just in poor health, poor shape. But 4 hours I was able to at least give. And the point here being is, I don't know your situation. It isn't about really my situation, but making the point, what is your situation? What can you give out of your bank account? What can you give of your time and energy? Just a couple hours to a charity event. Your local churches, do they have a soup kitchen where they help feed the poor, the needy? Just donate some time and effort, as well as money, is equally important, as well as, of course, our thoughts and prayers, right? I have an article, and it'll be listed in the show notes. Is prayer alone enough? And I refer you to 2 Chronicles 7:14. If my people pray, turn from their wicked ways, I shall heal their land, right? I'm only paraphrasing pieces, but my point is that many people miss the turn from wicked ways part. That requires action. Prayer alone, yes, is great, but you also must sow to reap. You shall be known by your fruits. We must act to try to turn our nation from the wicked ways. God will hear and help us, not wave a magic wand, but aid us in the recovery, or as I say, roar, #roar. Again, not the Katy Perry homage tribute to Helen Reddy, I Am Woman, Hear Me Roar song, her roar video. No, restore our American Republic. And faith and charity is part of our foundations. Communism was not. And again, to mention the Bradford colony, if you've not heard me talk about that, communism was tried on our continent long before Marx came along. They almost all starved to death because the Mayflower Commie Compact made a commonwealth. They all were supposed to work, and all supposedly then equally equity, that communist equity thing, got the same shares in return. Roofs over their head, food to eat, all those things. But of course, human nature, and why Jesus said the poor will always be among you, it's not an economics thing, it's a human nature thing. More and more people did less and less. Hey, if I'm going to have my belly filled and a roof over my head, I can do the bare minimum. Human nature, the laziness of our human nature. And soon there were more in the cart to be pulled than could be pulled by those pulling the cart. And again, as I said, they almost starved to death. So Bradford, thankfully still in charge at that point, instituted private property ownership, personal freedoms, individual rights and responsibilities, personal responsibility. You don't work, you don't eat. And the Bible makes that distinction and separation. That's why charity is what matters, not communism. Your local churches know who the unable are versus, the Bible says, the unwilling. And we have no obligation to the unwilling. Get off your butt if you're able and help yourself. So I'm going to throw another at any rate in there, because this episode actually has gone longer than I was expecting it would have. But I think I've touched on all the points I need to regarding charity as a follow-up to neighborliness. All these things relate. Community is biblical. Communism is not. I'll close it out before I go to the second segment, previewing some guests that will be coming on for the midweek Wednesday drops. I'm actually recording on a Wednesday. Wednesday, September the 4th, point of fact, I just dropped, before I hit record on this episode, with M.H. Elric, a Christian author in the fantasy genre realm, the likes of C.S. Lewis and J.R.R. Tolkien. All right. So before I get into that, Hitlery, it takes a village, is biblical in the biblical sense of community. You may need someone to babysit the kid at some point. You may be down on your luck at some point and need to take a helping hand. It takes a community voluntarily, that village. Unlike Hitlery's, it takes the fascistic state. It takes a village is biblical when used properly, and it is communistic, wrong, twisted warping of scriptures in the left sense of they want your children to be wards of the state. And also, I'll remind you of the episode, Who is Babysitting Whom, where I go into that more in depth. They want you to just be the nighttime babysitter, but hand over your kids to the state to indoctrinate all day long. We need our parental rights back. With that, I will conclude. Please stay tuned to segment 2, the upcoming shows, unless if you already sat through it last week, because it was attached there. Thank you all. Take care, and God bless. This is a special tack-on segment for a couple of shows to let you know about some August, September, October, potentially out into November shows. If you're looking behind the scenes, you can see I've got my I Remember Never Forget 9/11 shirt on and the 9/11 background, since we're going to be talking about things that will drop over September, October, this being August when I'm recording. And Hadassah Troy will be on, and she talks about how painful experiences become the birthplace of blessings. That's her book. How does Garth Brooks I'm getting dyslexic with his name. How does Garth Brooks' Unanswered Prayers song relate? Hope you'll tune in to find out, as well as Star Trek V, the movie. How does that relate? I hope these little teases mean you'll tune in when it drops, or depending on where this additional segment gets tacked on, may have already dropped in August, so please check it out. Another, I should say, August drop will be David Shine, holding up the note there. David Shine is the best-selling author of Bad Deal for America and The Decline of America, 100 Years of Leadership Failures. Obvious tie-in to the politics part of the ChristiTutionalist Politics podcast show. And in September, or going forward, loosely planned for September, October timeframe, M.H. Ulrich comes on, and we talk also, not another movie reference in there, but I hope you'll check in to find out how the discussion with her brings up C.S. Lewis, but Star Trek again. Right. Likely 2 episodes in a row or an episode apart. This time, Star Trek, the original series, a episode called Parallel. Spoiler alert, if you haven't seen the old series, they go to a planet and they worship the sun. They assume it's S-U-N, the sun above. But as you get to the end, you find out it is Christ having visited another planet, the Son of God on another planet, which is really kind of blows my mind, knowing that Gene Roddenberry was an atheist, that such an episode would have even been remotely allowed and considered. But, I want to give him credit. There were a wide variety of topics covered by that show. So please tune in to the M.H. Ulrich episode to find out how that Star Trek episode factors in. If you recall, if you've been with me a long time, last year, 9/11, I had on my friend from Wham Radio, Your American Heritage Show, Ed Bondarenka. I plan for now that the episode again will drop a new one, not a repeat, a new one on 9/11 with Ed Bondarenka. But it is not, while we'll touch on that somber Remembrance Day, it is not a show dedicated to that. But I just thought that was a logical day time frame to have him back on, since he was on last 9/11. Leslie Hall. Now think Leslie Nielsen. By Leslie, we're talking a male here. Leslie Hall, and a great conversation with him, and we talk MLK in there, and we talk about addiction. So that's an important show. I hope you'll tune in. We need a youth perspective, so I've got a couple coming up. Christopher Armstrong Stevenson, a young man, a high schooler, will be on so that we could talk a youth perspective, a Zoomer to Boomer. I use that term advisedly. You'll see why a little later. Eddie Yuda Man, man with 2 N's though, but you know me, I can't pass the lane pun, so I call him Eddie Yuda Man will be on. He's a Christian music singer-songwriter. I'm going to have a few of them on, so I hope you'll tune in for that. William R. Douglas, I'm holding up to the camera my notes from that. The Sum of All Our Anger, Civil War 2.0 book cover. You can see if you're looking behind the scenes. Obviously, with all that's going on, and my friend Michael Gardner, aka Savage, who wrote the book America's Political Battle, a current civil war in terms of a cold civil war. We're in a battle. We're in a civil war. It's just not shooting at each other yet. Whereas William, his book goes into the what if it turns hot over the next few years. His, like my Terror Strikes book, is historical fiction. There is some fact, some fiction that lends credence to the fact that these issues boil over, may lead to a hot civil war. Another singer-songwriter, Richard Lynch, will be on. We will be mentioning a few. Barry Gibb, Conway Twitty. Tune in to find how they factor into that episode. Christine Sposato. Hey, we're both Italiano, so we joke Italian desserts. But seriously, you've heard me talk about conservatives being censored on school campuses, and she indeed created a group, studentvoicessilence.com, so we will talk further about that. Another singer-songwriter, Robert Ross, will be on. If you don't have to like country, you shouldn't have to like country to tune in, but if you are a country fan, obviously you really want to tune in to find out how and why Freddie Fender, David Allan Coe get mentioned in the episode, as well as I lost my place. Looking, Conway Twitty again, George Jones, and Vern Gosdin. He brought that name up. That was a name I hadn't heard in a long time, so please tune in for that. Robert Boog. Ever since I was in high school, we heard the rumor and conspiracy theory that William Shakespeare didn't write his stuff. I venture into that discussion with Robert Boog. James Gebhardt is on, and in Who is Babysitting Whom, we've talked about honor your mother and father, right? Who is the parent? The left wants your children to be wards of the state. This is why they hate and want to destroy Christianity. That honor your mother and father part is in the way of their turning all children of the nation into wards of the fascistic state. Remember, I've talked before, Hitlery and the warping of It Takes a Village, which is biblical, not Hitlery's It Takes the Fascistic State warped version of it. Michelle Jewsbury, if you remember, I had Trent Brock on in the past. He has a chapter in a book about survivors, hardships in life. Michelle Jewsbury has got a volume 1 out, volume 2, 3, 4 will be coming, collections of survivors of hardships, so people know they are not alone. And indeed, there may be, hopefully is, they're not alone, there is help, there can be light at the end of the tunnel or around the corner. I mentioned Zoomers to Boomers. If you see behind the scene there, you see a little logo there, Zoomers to Boomers. Roger Landry of the Liberty Beacon Project, again, I write for thelibertybeacon.com. I am on TLB Talk. That's all part of the TLB Project. He's founder of that. He has a show with a young lady, not going to turn 18 soon, but not yet. So a young lady, hence Zoomers to Boomers. They have a show together. So again, we get that youth perspective here that's much needed. And lastly, I'm going to mention Luann Hunt, another singer-songwriter. If you're at all a Patsy Cline fan, or your parents or your grandparents were a Patsy Cline fan, you want to turn into I cannot talk. You want to tune into that show to see how Patsy Cline has factored into Luann Hunt's life. And Patsy Cline kind of lives on now through Luann Hunt. Thank you all. Just wanted to give you a brief sneak peek at coming midweek Wednesday guest appearance drops. Take care. God bless.
Thank you for having tuned in for ChristiTutionalist Politics Show. If you haven't already, please check out my primary internationally available book, Terror Strikes, coming soon to a city near you. Available anywhere books are sold. If you have locally run bookstores still near you, they can order it for you, or autographed copies are available online direct from me via terrorstrikes.info/shop. Be sure to check out more about today's discussion at thelibertybeacon.com, where my articles drop every Saturday. And let me remind, over time, the fancy high production items will come. But for now, for starters, it's just you as a very appreciated listener by me. All substance, no fluff. No fancy high production intro or inserts, at least yet, just straight to key discussion points. A show that looks at a variety of topics, mostly politics, through a Christian U.S. constitutionalist lens. So again, thank you from the bottom of my heart. Take care. God bless. Like and subscribe to ChristiTutionalist Politics Podcast and share episodes. We need your help to grow the show.
Just wanted to give a brief shout out and thank you to all the folks on iHeartRadio and Player FM for being two in the top 3 platforms that my show, ChristiTutionalist Politics, is most often listened to.